Hi, I'm Meg and welcome back to my channel. And in this video we are setting up my Midnights themed January 2026 bullet journal setup. I am doing this voiceover thing for the first time, so please be kind, but we're going to try this together. I started with gathering a few supplies out of my stash, and I got some papers and some stamps and a few stickers. I wanted to embody the lavender, dreamy vibe while obviously paying homage to the clocks as part of the theme. Made a lot of sense to me with January and Midnights, with New Year's and all of that. So that's where we're starting with this. I'm using some stamps here that I've gotten from Amazon over the last few years. I will try and link what I can below, but some of this I bought quite a while ago, so it may not be available anymore. So as you can see, I've picked out some paper that has kind of a light purple, kind of watery, iridescent, dreamy kind of look, and I'm using some glue tape to glue it down to the page. I just used a craft knife to try and cut off the excess, as well as rounding the corners with some scissors. I chose my color palette based off of the various songs on the album, some of the music videos and the cover art, so that's where I'm getting a lot of inspiration from. I've got a lot of elements that are kind of holographic, have lots of really fun effects. Some stuff like this paper obviously has no effect on it, it is just a pretty printed image. And you can see on the right side here that I'm including a kind of affirmation statement on my cover page. And I used to do kind of a quote on the cover page, but I got these cheap packs of affirmation statements, and sometimes I send them to friends along with pen pal kind of packages and letters that I send out. But I thought I've got quite a few duplicates, so I can look through them and find some inspiration for something to keep in mind as I go through the month. I'm trying to use quite a few elements in this cover page that I will then reuse in future spreads so that it all kind of ties together pretty well. Again, I'm trying to go for that kind of scattered holographic vibe, a lot of purples. I have brown in the title. I feel like the affirmation card has some similar colors to it. So that's where we're coming up from with all of that. I also have this little pack of tabs. I've never used like stick-on tabs like these for my everyday journal in the past, but I feel like it might be helpful as I try to navigate as the year goes on for quick flip-throughs. I'm using my date stamp here. I probably should have aligned that just a little bit better, and this is where I'm realizing that my title bar is going to overlap that calendar just a little bit, but hey, mistakes are fine. That's how we know that this is handmade and not a pre-printed journal. I don't have anything against pre-printed journals, but what I really like about making my own setup is that I have as much or as little space for any elements that I want. So while it does take a little bit of setup time and effort and some materials that you may not need if you have a pre-printed planner, I really enjoy the customization that making my own spreads offers. I'm highlighting the weekends so that it's a little bit easier to see on the calendar where I am, but this is a calendar vertically, and then I've got obviously the dates in the calendar format up top for reference. I do the days of the week and then the numbers of the days, and then I fill in the side off camera with any events and birthdays and reminders that I need throughout the month because In the past, I have not set up all of my weeks at once. I would set up this beginning of setup, and then I would do 1 week, and then I would take a little bit of time to do the rest of the weeks. But now that I am filming these for YouTube, I am trying to do all of the weeks at once, and it is kind of nice as I'm going through the rest of the month. I don't have to worry about setting up more weeks as we get closer to them. More of those iridescent clouds, and now we get a new element, which is this really beautiful washi tape, again from Journal Say, and it's a really pretty galaxy. It has some holographic stars on there, so we're keeping all that kind of subtle shine, and it's a pretty short repeat, so you'll see in later pages where I use it again that that repeat is a little bit obvious, but whenever you're only using it for one side of a spread or one page, it makes a really nice background element. So the consistent spreads that I have every month are a cover page with an affirmation quote, a calendar page with tasks and or a challenge. I have a reading log. I have a currently inked page for all of my fountain pens, and then I move into the weeklies. Sometimes I'll have, some years I will add more spreads and setups. I've never found that I keep up with habit trackers very well, especially whenever they're at the front of a month. If they are in the weekly, then it's a little bit more consistent, but I just find that I'm not using that data as much as I had hoped, so a couple years ago I stopped doing habit trackers. You'll see that I'm using a grid guide, and this was created as I was setting up the journal in the first place. It's a really helpful tool. I love that I can take it out of the front pocket and then reference it up against the page, and I can see how many times a page can divide into itself. So this is the first month in a series of setups that I'm going to be doing this year. In the past, I've kind of been all over the place with my themes, and it's been really fun to have kind of that limitless creativity, but I've found that if I don't place limits on myself sometimes, I can get a little bit overwhelmed and uninspired. So I am, this year, going with overarching themes for both my everyday journal and my reading journal. This journal has Taylor Swift albums as a overarching theme because she has 12 albums, and I thought that it would be kind of fun to do one album per month. And then my reading journal, which I have a couple of videos live now where I'm running through the setups for that. That journal's theme for the year is Around the World in 80 Days, and every month is a different location around the world. So this is my currently inked spread. I plan on posting some currently inked videos, but I don't think that I'm going to use this page in those videos. This is more of just a check if my pens are all working well and if I need to re-ink any of them. My currently inked videos that I plan on doing are going to be more focused on the inks that match the themes of the months that I'm using or what pens I have found myself gravitating towards that month. So this is kind of just like an everything that is currently inked, and then whenever I post later this month about my currently inked, it's going to be mostly focused on the pens that I am actually using on a daily basis. I will not be writing all of my fountain pens into this spread during this video. That is a bit of a tedious process, and as I said, sometimes I find that I need to re-ink or clean out my pens, so you don't really need to see that. Repeating elements, I'm using that Galaxy washi tape. I am also using another piece of kind of like that wet looking paper from a paper pack I got from Journal Say a long time ago. And I'm making a kind of a frame. I would say that this is probably my least favorite out of all of my setups for this month. It just kind of, well, I mean, without the pen write-ups, it doesn't feel complete, but then also I don't know if I really like the way that the frame ended up looking. I end up using the sides here because they just felt a little bit too wide compared to the top and bottom borders as the title, actually. So I'm using my Ferris Wheel Press Gandalf fountain pen, which was a big purchase for myself last year as a birthday present, as well as the Dawning Silver ink from the same Lord of the Rings collection. So it's a dark charcoal gray ink with a lot of silver shimmer packed into it, and I felt like it would be neutral enough but still sparkly for this spread as the title. So now we are in the first weekly, and you'll see that I made some pencil marks. I'm going over those with a Tombow 620 purple marker, and this helps me keep everything straight and hopefully not go too far past my lines that I need. But I always try to erase my pencil markings before I start to go in with any markers or pens, because even if you leave them for a while, they tend to smear. And some people say that it doesn't really get caught underneath the ink, but I have found that it is harder to erase once you have put down some sort of marker ink or any other kind of ink over the top of pencil. You'll see that there are a lot more than 7 boxes in this weekly, and that's because I'm combining the first 3 days of the month along with the first week, because I didn't really feel like I needed to have a whole separate page for those first 3 days, especially considering that I was out of the country on a New Year's trip vacation for the first few days, and I didn't get home until January 3rd. So I didn't want to make an unnecessary page where it's actually, as the time that I was filming this, it was like January 4th. So it was more of just a record keeping, and it would have bothered me if I didn't have some sort of accountability for January 1st through 3rd. But that's why the first 2 boxes are really small, because those were not used at all, except noting the days. And then January 3rd is whenever I traveled home, and January 4th is when I was setting this up. Now this week, you may have caught on that post-it note, was Lavender Haze. I am making each week themed after a song within the album that month. So we have 4 songs that we will be making kind of spreads themed after. Lavender Haze, I have these beautiful blotchy ink swirly iridescent stickers that I think are perfect for a lavender haze concept. And then you saw that I put some label paper down at the bottom with some writing. Those are the lyrics of the song. I felt like putting them down there in just kind of a light gray with a loopy cursive font would be just a nice kind of subtle element that is tying it back to the song, though it's not quite on the nose, very in front of you. I think that this is still a spread that somebody could repurpose even if they weren't doing kind of like this same theme concept that I'm doing with the albums. I think it's an effective color scheme. And that's the first week done. We'll move on to week 2, which you will see is going to be themed after the song Karma. I like to mix up the placement of my daily boxes so that it makes it a little bit more interesting, and it also allows me to be a little bit more flexible with my decoration. I'm using a cutter to cut off the last line of the text on the lyrics because it just wasn't quite fitting with where I had started the boxes. And I'm just placing that over the top as, again, another kind of like subtle decoration that is just filling a little bit of space. It's not enough where you're actually reading it as you get into the journal. I don't like a lot of decorative text on my pages that are super kind of bold and clear. I particularly don't like it whenever there's text incorporated into like PET tapes that I buy. Usually that will be a considering factor on whether or not I even actually buy it, because I find it distracting. But I think that in this case, it works well for a kind of background texture. You'll see that I'm using another one of those purple water pages. They are really thin pieces of printed paper, and I've just ripped it down the middle, made sure that it fit on the sides here. I don't love that it doesn't extend all the way to the top and the bottom. I kind of wish that these papers were just a little bit bigger so that they would do that, but I have other paper that I got from like craft stores that are like true scrapbooking papers that do reach the entire way from the top to the bottom of the page. I just found that I wanted to use these pieces out of my stash. To try and get some of that continuity from top to bottom, I'm using that holographic botanical PET tape that we had on the cover page. And it's just a little bit too wide for these side bits, so I cut off the edges. You'll see that off camera, I did that. There's that really pretty kind of inky, smoky swirl, and we've got a new element, which is, I'm going to just call them like princesses. I have some packs of these vintage elegant ladies, again from Journal Say, and they come with some accessories, and so Karma is a queen. I felt like I wanted to have that lyric represented. So I've got a queen on here. And then in the bottom left, you'll also see a girl holding a cat because Karma is a cat. Week 3, the song is Mastermind. I really enjoyed the visualizer for this song on YouTube. Dio, my cat, has come to join me. I have 3 cats. You may have seen Minerva in one of my previous videos. And then Dio here is the youngest, and Osiris is my black cat, and he doesn't show up as often on camera, but at some point we'll get him on here. I sped all of this footage to about 3 times speed, so you'll see him kind of wobbling around. That's because he's breathing, and this is what it looks like whenever he's breathing in 3 times speed. So the visualizer video for Mastermind had clocks and a very golden theme, but also I felt like the galaxy worked here too. So I'm putting a strip of galaxy tape down the middle. And then I'm putting the lyrics on top. So to make the lyrics actually stretch all the way across the page, I ripped it diagonally, which Dio thinks is a toy, and I am going to just make kind of a top and bottom border, ripped border for the galaxy, which I think ends up being a really cool effect. I think that this may be my favorite out of the weeklies that I set up. Sorry for any obvious kind of like color and tone changes or lighting changes. I am still learning to use the editing software and my camera to their best abilities, so please be patient with me as I learn new skills. This iridescent gold tape is one of a set that will make another appearance later. I thought that this really brought a new and fun element to the page. Adding a little bit of border on the sides, you can see the pencil marks show that I have plenty of room for all 7 of the box days. was sitting on the stash of stickers that I had reserved for this week. These kind of look like the cogs and wheels of innards of clocks. They also kind of have a compass vibe. I use them in place of compasses sometimes on some of my fantasy reading journal spreads. The bottom row of dots is actually pretty far away from the bottom of the page in Tifosi notebooks, which is what I'm using here. So in order to give myself close to the same amount of room on all of the days, I am extending those boxes down just a little bit into that empty white space. So that's why I was measuring a little bit extra at the bottom there. I know I could have switched up the color of the boxes that I was drawing to one of the other tombos that I have off to the side for this month, especially because it's got a lot more gold, but I felt like keeping it consistent week over week was a better and more cohesive idea. It also lets the gold on the sides kind of shine and stand out as a unique element. All right, we're going to cut off the excess, write in the titles. We'll move on to our final week. You'll see that I flip back, and oftentimes I'm cutting that out of the video, but I wanted to show that I double, triple check whenever I'm writing in the days of the week and the numbers of the days, because I have messed it up way too many times in the past, and I still mess it up even. And week 4 is Bejeweled. Now, I tried to cut this in half, but it ended up not being completely in half, and it worked out anyway because the bottom, as I said, has some extra space where the dots don't go all the way to the bottom of the page. So I'm using the larger section on the bottom. We've got the lyrics kind of bordering the top and bottom, and these won't actually be as clearly seen as the lyric strips on previous pages. I've got some other elements that are going to go over the top. Here are those tapes from the rest of the set that we had with the gold one last week. And I'm going to use, it may be a little bit chaotic, but I'm going to use one of each of the colors because Bejeweled, to me, the music video is lots of different jewels and lots of different colors. So we're going to have 4 different colors and kind of split the page into quadrants for the decoration. We've got black first. Something I do with the tapes is that I will peel off just a section, I'll cut off a little bit of the backing, and then I will use the small bit of exposed backing to align the tape before I fully commit and then take off the rest of it. So this helps with trying to make sure that things are lined up to the edge of the page or lined up with other decorative elements. It allows me to shift things around a little bit before actually sticking it to the page. So you can see with the green here, it's transparent enough that you can still see the text behind it, but really it's just a texture. It's not really even like text that you want to truly read. I really enjoy these tapes. They remind me of geodes, which I know are not necessarily gemstones, but I think are kind of like jewel adjacent, you know? And we're going in with our dots for the boxes. I want to get the functional elements down before I get any further into decorating. And we are back in with the princesses sets of stickers that I have. I chose one from each of the color sets to go along with the tape colors that I already put in there. I really like the lady in black. I think her dress is particularly pretty. We've got purple, green, and blue. Let me know what your favorite spread was out of this month's setup. Is there anything that you're looking forward to in January that you're planning for? I am looking forward to more videos, getting better and better at filming and editing and being more comfortable with voiceovers. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them down below. And then let's do a flip through of the entire month. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.